The Swordsmith Village Arc has come and gone, and it was, let's just say it had its good and bad sides. Though some viewers didn't like the CGI in some cases, like the fish demon, the animation overall was crisp and gorgeous, and the backstories and the ending episode were quite well liked. However, there are at least three major things problematic with the Swordsmith Village Arc. Before I begin with the criticism, I would just like to say that I am quite a positive-minded person. I look mostly at the positives of everything, but I also think that it's okay if we talk about the negatives of something. Still, I would like to mention that I'm a big fan of Demon Slayer and I'm excited to watch the rest of the series. No, I have not read the manga yet, so please no spoilers in the comments. The first aspect of the season I did not like is the missed Hashira Tokito Muichiro. For some reason, there are many fans of Muichiro, but I personally don't get his appeal. Yes, he looks good, is stoic, and is strong. However, I never liked Muichiro's condescending attitude, his holier-than-thou personality. Muichiro does a lot of other unlikable things besides his personality being a passive turn-off for me. For example, he pinches Tanjiro's nose to wake him up. That's just plain rude and insensitive. More importantly, the first time we see him, he is insensitive to the swordsmith's worth and says, quote, "A Hashira's time and your time have completely different values." Tanjiro even says that he really doesn't like Muichiro. Yes, Tanjiro said that. And that Muichiro lacks sympathy. Of course, Muichiro is traumatized because of his background story, which is quite good. But what remains the truth is that his character right now, in the present, is unlikable at most times. What's more, even when Muichiro saves the young boy from Upper Moon 5, he says, and I quote, "You'll just get in my way, so get out of here, will you?" I don't know about you, but this kind of attitude of always being arrogant and never sympathetic, even when he saves someone, I don't like it at all. But perhaps the biggest reason I don't like Muichiro is that he seems to be inherently powerful, even in comparison to other Hashira. I haven't read the manga, but from what the anime shows, it appears that he is a relative of Tanjiro's, perhaps his cousin. The Sound Hashira Tengen Uzui had also said that Muichiro became a Hashira only after 2 months of picking up a sword. Muichiro is also the first and possibly only person to defeat an Upper Moon by himself. Granted, he would have lost without the young swordsmith boy helping him. However, he easily overwhelms the upper rank 5 after that. And that brings us to the second point I would like to discuss, which is, in my opinion, the worst problem of this season. And that is illogical and undeserved power scaling. A YouTuber by the name of FelixerCH has a viral video on it, check that out as well. But here are my thoughts which add to his. Just consider how difficult it was to defeat Upper Rank 6, which was Gyutaro and Daki in the Entertainment District arc. It took Tanjiro, Inosuke, Zenitsu, Tengen Uzui, and heck, even one of his wives to defeat Gyutaro and Daki. And in the Mugen Train arc, though it was relatively easier to take down Lower Moon 1, it makes sense that Lower Moon 1 didn't actually depend on his strength, on his raw strength, but on his sleep-inducing powers. And don't forget, after Lower Moon 1 was defeated, we immediately get Akaza to show up to show just how much of a gap there was between Tanjiro and the upper-ranked demons. Tanjiro and the others were absolutely helpless. Are you telling me that Tanjiro developed his fighting skills so much so quickly that he is able to go toe-to-toe with upper rank 4 by himself? Granted, Genya was also fighting, but in another sense it was even worse, as upper rank 4 was actually 4 people and 5 if you actually count the main body who was not fighting, the chibi version. Whereas it was just Tanjiro and Genya and then Nezuko afterward. So you can say that it was 3 against 4 in favor of upper rank 4. How is that fair? In the Entertainment District arc again, it was Daki and Gyutaro, 2 people, which means 2 people on the villain's side. And Tanjiro, Zenitsu, Inosuke, Nezuko, and Tengen Uzui. And let's just discount Uzui's wife, who was also undoubtedly helpful. Still, that makes it 5 people, including a Hashira. It took at least 5 people to take down Upper Moon 6. And still, it was a much more difficult fight than in this arc, where Tanjiro, Genya, and Nezuko, 3 people, were holding down Upper Moon 6, 4 Upper Moon versions, and that too without a Hashira. Of course, the love Hashira Mitsuri came and helped at the end, but even before she came, those 3 were doing quite well by themselves. That is simply illogical power scaling in my opinion. And don't get me started again on how a single Hashira defeated an upper rank by himself. How can upper moons be defeated this easily? Wasn't it stated a number of times that it had been more than a century since the upper ranked demons were not defeated? And didn't Daki say that she killed 7 Hashira? And even if you think that Gyutaro helped her every time, which I do think that he did, even if so, it was also stated that he himself, Gyutaro himself, killed 15 Hashira. I understand that these statistics were given so that the outcomes of the battles are made more surprising for the general reader. However, if you look back at these quotes and try to think with any semblance of logic, then you can't help but scratch your head. Yes, again, I know that many, if not most shonen anime have illogical power scaling. The most illogical ones are in Fairy Tail and Dragon Ball, I would say, but my favorite anime and manga, One Piece, also has illogical power scaling, like Luffy beating Crocodile and Law and Kid vs Big Mom, and I do criticize those moments. Similarly, Demon Slayer's Swordsmith Village Arc had pretty horrible power scaling issues. Moving to the third and final problem, it is similar to the second issue of power scaling, and that is no permanent consequences. Let's start the discussion of this point with some preface. In the first season, no villains have long-lasting consequences to any major character, but that is okay, I would say, as the first season establishes the main characters and the plot. Of course, in the very first episode and chapter, tragedy struck Tanjiro as most of his family members died and his sister turned into a demon. However, we do not feel any attachment to the characters as it's just the first chapter or episode. So, no significant long-lasting consequences in the first season, you can say. What about the Mugen Train arc? It has by far the most significant long-lasting consequence, that being Rengoku's death. But I'm not just saying that deaths are absolutely necessary for long-lasting consequences. Because, again, in the Entertainment District arc, Tengen Uzui lost his left arm and eye. What's more, he has also retired from action for good. These are definite long-term consequences. Now, coming to the Swordsmith Village arc, were there any long-lasting consequences? Absolutely not, I would say. No major injury or death. And that takes me off even more. Tanjiro was almost dying versus Daki, who is not even an upper rank moon by herself. But versus the upper rank 4, he was doing exceptionally well. Again saying he didn't struggle nearly as much versus upper rank 4 compared to how he struggled against Daki, who is not even upper moon 6 by herself. Tanjiro didn't lose any limbs and didn't even take any major hits. Just some scratches against upper rank 4. How is that logical? Finally, let's talk about the last episode of the Swordsmith Village arc. To be frank, I really enjoyed most of it, despite there being a major fake-out death. A fake-out death is when a death scene is played out extensively, and there is an attempt by the anime or manga to make the readers think that a character is going to die. Very unfortunately, the death scene is for Nezuko here, and we all know without a shadow of a doubt that Nezuko is not going to die now. No way. Even if she were to die, it would take the very last season, but not now. So, I don't think any reader or viewer honestly thought that Nezuko was going to die. There was a fake-out death scene in the previous arc as well, but that was more believable as Tengen Uzui is not a main character, and he could have easily died like Rengoku, especially as that happened in the previous arc. Not to mention, he had some death flags. Uzui had some death flags, like wanting to be retired if he survived that battle. Nezuko had no death flags whatsoever in this third season. Tengen's and Nezuko's death scenes, therefore, did not have the same level of believability. That being said, I still forgive the fake-out death scene here because the reason Nezuko survived is plot relevant. Muzan is ecstatic to learn about Nezuko surviving the sun. He is so happy despite knowing of the deaths of Upper Moons 4 and 5. So, Nezuko's scene is that much relevant to progress of the story. It is not simply a fake-out death scene to get temporary sympathy from the audience. So, I will forgive this scene. Still, that does not make it a great scene. Nobody watching the scene was honestly concerned about Nezuko's death. So there you have it. These are the 3 major things I did not like about the Swordsmith Village Arc. The 3 reasons are again, number 1, the unlikable character of Tokito Muichiro. Number 2, the illogical and unbelievable power scaling issue. And number 3, the lack of long-lasting consequences of the fights. I have other things I didn't like about the arc. For example, I didn't like how Tanjiro didn't care at all about upper rank 4. He didn't want to understand him. That is odd because Tanjiro was not black and white before. Especially in the first season, he respected the demons he slayed, such as the spider demon and also Gyutaro and Daki to an extent. However, in this season, he is, and I hate to say it, actually a bully to upper rank 4. I didn't expect this of him, as I really like Tanjiro and think that he is one of the best main characters in anime today. Hope you liked the video. This is the first video on this channel on an anime and manga different from One Piece. If you want more content outside One Piece, do comment. My favorite anime besides One Piece include Hunter x Hunter, Attack on Titan, Bleach, Death Note, Code Geass, etc. etc. Again, I would like to say that I'm a big fan of Demon Slayer and love the series, but I really wanted to talk about some of the problems I had with this arc.